What is good? Osiris here, stuck in the middle. And we're hearing that Joe Biden has announced that the U.S. will ban Russia imports of oil. I have no problem with that. That makes sense. The problem I have is what led up to this. Your car might be fainting after seeing the price of fuel, especially depending where you are in this country. You yourself might be at the pump, literally in tears. You know things are bad when Elon Musk, the king of sustainable transportation, the guy who despises the oil and gas industry like you would never imagine. He said, I quote on Twitter, hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. I I need to stop, and this tweet is the ramifications of things getting so bad. To have Elon Musk state this position publicly on Twitter is astronomical. The oil and gas industry, they are, in my opinion, a part of the short sellers who are trying to tank Tesla stock. They have been trying to tank Tesla stock since they knew that Tesla was the real deal. They are business mortal enemies. There's nothing that Elon Musk would like more. I know oil, natural resources are used to make the batteries, of course, but there's nothing that he would like more than for these companies that lobby against him and try to destroy his company on a daily basis to just be, stop existing. And he said, we need to give them money. We need to increase output. That's why he said, extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures. If this Breitbart headline doesn't make you curious to find out more, to find out if it's true, if it triggers you just because it comes from Breitbart, there's something wrong with you. Reports Joe Biden seeking oil deal with socialist Venezuela, Russia's best friend. And not just Venezuela, others. If you think that that's something to ignore, you're probably as bright as the people who are throwing airplanes off of the balcony in New York, these artists. Why are they throwing airplanes out off the balcony? They want a no-fly zone in Ukraine. Do they think this is a video game? They're acting like 2-year-olds who didn't get to play on their tablet today, or a teenager who got their Xbox stolen. This isn't Call of Duty. This is real life. You obviously aren't doing well if this is your take. You started out as an NPC and you got your update from your Borg queen. At the top, it's hard to see this, or if you're listening, the update in the brain was the pandemic. What happened is the update got taken out, or you could have done it wirelessly, over-the-air update, and it got replaced with Ukraine, and then they got activated. It's the same philosophy back in December. The Democratic committee tweeted, thanks Joe Biden. They thought this tweet was an own. That's why they said thanks, comma, at Joe Biden. The tweet is still up to this day, March 8th. This graph shows that over the 2-week span, gas prices went down from $3.40 to $3.38. 2 cents in 2 weeks. They tweeted, thanks, Joe Biden. They set the graph up in order of fractions of a penny in order to make the graph look better. That's the number one problem. Number two problem is, beyond it, the tweet still being up, is that if you thank Joe Biden for a 2-cent decrease over a 2-week span in November, then who is going to hold him accountable for this? This is going back to September of 2020. Biden takes over, obviously in January, sworn in as POTUS, and we're looking at it just steadily climb and climb and climb, and Putin invades Ukraine, and it's going through the roof. So what did I expect to happen? Well, number one, when we go back to October of last year, we knew this was going to happen. This is out in the open. So we don't know what the Biden administration knew way more than we did. This is out in the open. Headlines: Russian movements near Ukraine border cause concern. That's in late last year. At the exact same time, Ro Khanna in the Senate, Ro Khanna is grilling oil execs about lowering production, meaning, oh, that stuff was happening. The left hand isn't speaking to the right, or something else is going on. But Ro Khanna, we're going to listen to this here. He is embarrassing himself.
The United Nations 2021 Production Gap Report says, to be consistent with a 1.5 degree pathway, oil and gas production would have to decline annually by 4% and 3% respectively.
So if you're not, so I'm playing a clip here, and I'll talk about it a little bit so we can understand the context. This is a hearing in Congress. Ro Khanna is the head of this committee. Is this the Commerce Committee? I apologize which committee this is. I'm not sure, but it's irrelevant. He's the head of this committee. So he's got the oil execs in there, and he's grilling them, and he's talking about, from the standpoint of climate change, you all are supposed to decrease production, these American oil companies.
IEA's 2021 net zero roadmap calls for no new oil and gas developments. Mr. Lawler, BP has said that it supports economy-wide net zero greenhouse gas emission targets by 2050. You made a strong commitment, actually, to reduce oil and gas production by 40% by 2030. I assume you're doing this because you think it is important and part of the solution to the climate crisis. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You're talking about a climate crisis, and now we're in a nuclear crisis.
Mr. Khanna, what BP has aligned its strategy on is in accordance with the Paris Agreement. We have a new strategy. Just 2 years ago, just before COVID started, we put this new strategy into place.
Right. I don't want to cut you off. We have limited time. And so you believe that the oil and gas production must decline each year? Is that partly why you're doing this?
We think that's the best decision for BP, and that's our
And
contribution.
Ms. Watkins, Shell's energy transition.
So you heard the CEO there, or the executive, talk about the Paris Climate Accord. Remember, Donald Trump got criticized for pulling out of that? He said that the climate accord was not in America's best interest. Do you remember when he said that? He said, I'm paraphrasing, something to the effect of like it's an agreement that disadvantages the United States. Yeah, and he was based. I'm not for oil. I'm a Tesla guy, but national security is more important than any of this stuff. This stuff, going to more sustainable, that's long term. He's talking about 2050. So he's trying to grill them on this year, 2021, is when this happened.
Having a 50% reduction on scope 1 and 2, and you are also committed to a 1 to 2% year in total oil production decline. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Great, and I assume you're doing that because you also believe under the Paris agreements that it's important and that we need to have oil and gas production declining every year?
Congressman, what we do believe is that hydrocarbon demand needs to reduce if we're going to get to net zero by 2050, which is why we're also.
She didn't agree. So she's trying to find a graceful way to say, Ro Khanna, you're full of ish. She's like, what we do agree on is that world demand needs to go down. They're like, we're like the local dude on your corner. He keeps slinging that stuff on the corner because there's demand for it. That's what. And they're in a legal business. Let's bring that back. That's what she's saying.
Is that hydrocarbon demand needs to reduce if we're going to.
The demand needs to reduce. Ro Khanna's like, you guys need to reduce. And she's like, the demand needs to reduce.
A 50% reduction on scope 1 and 2. And you are also committed to a 1 to 2% year in total oil production decline. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Great, and I assume you're doing that because you also believe under the Paris agreements that it's important and that we need to have oil and gas production declining every year?
Congressman, what we do believe is that hydrocarbon demand needs to reduce if we're going to get to net zero by 2050, which is why we're also providing.
Ro Khanna thought this was some type of own. He thought it was a own to bring them up there and say, why aren't you reducing? He wanted them to reduce immediately to get onto that schedule. At the exact same time, Russia's lining up troops on the border of Ukraine. Months after divesting, let's look at Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna's spouse. Ro Khanna reminds me of Nancy Pelosi in this regards. It's always his spouse with the investments. Nancy Pelosi with Paul Pelosi. Ro Khanna's spouse keeps trading fossil fuel and defense stocks. She keeps trading them. And what stocks are doing really well right now? This past August, according to the most recent transaction report he's filed, Ro Khanna's family purchased anywhere, I'm going to group those two numbers together, $30,000 to $145,000 worth of shares in the natural gas companies, Dominion, Duke, Conoco, Phillips. This report lists range rather than the specific amount, so they don't know the exact amount. We know the range is from 30,000 to 145,000. Wait till you hear when Newsweek asked him, what's this about? He said, the money is my wife's property. Okay, this both of you and your wife. Okay, so do you support a bill where spouses can't invest? You're a public servant. If you want to flip stocks, I'm all good with it, bruh. Just get the hell out of D.C. There were apparently a few de minimis transactions. Man, don't start speaking Latin to me, bruh. And then they followed up some more. He said that these transactions were accidental. His office said these transactions were accidental purchases made in error. So they're just accidentally picking the best stocks to go up while a lot of people, the market has gone down recently. They were ahead of the game. It just accidentally happened. It wasn't strategic at all. Oil and gas and defense contractors, when you know war is coming. Come on, man. She was probably listening to Alex Jones. Alex Jones called it from back then too. As a side note, I did not know this when I was reading this article. Ohio, the ceremony took place in Severance Hall. I used to play the violin. I actually switched from violin to viola. Senior year in high school, I was able to make it to the Cleveland Orchestra, Youth Orchestra. They played there. I was in the back of the viola section, but proud to have made it. And they played the concerts we played at Severance Hall. I remember listening to Busta Rhymes' Level Extinction Event, the one with Ill Vibe with him and Q-Tip. That album came out. So in between breaks, I would go get my food, chill, have my headphones, listen to Busta Rhymes, then go on stage playing classical. Beautiful hall. I completely digress. Tom Elliott tweets, today, the average gas price in America hit an all-time record high of over $4 a gallon. Okay, that stings, but a clean conscience is worth a buck or two. It's important. I'm willing to pay $4 a gallon. Hell, I'll pay $15 a gallon because I drive a Tesla. Who said that? Stephen Colbert. Net worth 15 million, give or take a mil. He said, I'm willing to pay more. Hell, I'm willing to pay $15 because I drive a Tesla. Glenn Greenwald called him out. He earns $15 million in a year. He has a net worth approaching $100 million. And they're clapping and laughing to this garbage. Are you, as a common person, clapping and laughing to this dude right now? Completely out of touch. Biden tried to say this is Putin's price hike. I showed you what happened. How is this Putin's price hike? Biden was sworn in, kept going up. I showed you how Ro Khanna last year is trying to hem up the oil companies to not produce. You can't say that. So everything, it's not like the president has full control, but we have basic Econ 101 facts for our positions here. Ducey and Psaki go back and forth. It's like Ducey's the only one that on a routinely basis tries to ask tough questions. He says, will he undo the executive order that stops the Keystone XL? So there's two. The Keystone pipeline is still active. We're talking about the XL, almost like Nord Stream 1 and 2. Psaki says, are you suggesting that would solve the gas prices issue? Did you hear my question? Don't answer my question with a question. Now, I will do that sometimes on Twitter, but I'm not the press secretary for the United States. That's not going to work. Well, do you think that would maybe affect prices faster than getting the whole country off fossil fuels? Because her answer was, well, we should become independent by getting off of fossil fuels and going to solar and everything else. We don't even have the batteries to make tests. If you order a Tesla Model 3 right now, the base model, to my knowledge, you can't get it until the year 2023. Why is that? In part because of batteries. Your solar panels and your wind farms don't mean a damn thing unless you have those mega packs. Unless you have batteries to store the energy, you don't have it. So we're not ready for that. Listen to this exchange. Their exchanges are something else because it really tests Psaki.
So you say that you're going to do everything that you can to reduce the impact that high gas prices have on Americans. We're asking other countries to think about maybe pumping more oil. Why not just do it here?
Well, to be very clear, federal policies are not limiting the supplies of oil and gas.
I'm going to give a response to this. Ducey asked, why don't we do it here? Why are we running around asking some countries that really are kind of our enemies, we're not friends, for more oil? And she's saying the federal government isn't in the way. I'm going to give you a response to that from someone who was on Fox News. A guy who used to work in the oil industry. He did a great job in responding.
Well, to be very clear, federal policies are not limiting the supplies of oil and gas. Let me finish. Let me finish.
An executive order his
Peter,
first week that halted new oil and gas.
Let me give you the facts here, and I know that can be inconvenient, but I think they're important in this moment.
See that she's very smart. These leftist pro-authoritarians that are on Twitter and all over, these NPCs that get updates, they look at her and that little sly comment where she's like, hey, let me give you the truth, the facts. I know that can be inconvenient. That itself is just a yes, queen moment. Go get a yes, queen. That gives fodder to these people who don't care about facts. They don't know the facts. They're like, ooh, look how she did Ducey. And in fact, she's lying to all of us or kind of framing it in a way that doesn't make sense to answer the question purposely. But Psaki, make no mistake about it, that is a social media play to do those little yes queen moments like that.
Let me give you the facts here, and I know that can be inconvenient, but I think they're important in this moment. To the contrary, we have been clear that in the short term, supply must keep up with the demand. We are, and here and around the world, will we make the shift to a secure, clean energy future. We are one of the largest producers with a strong domestic oil and gas industry. We have actually produced more oil. It is at record numbers, and we will continue to produce more oil. There are 9,000 approved drilling permits that are not being used.
That is going to come up. That was her strongest point. She said, well, you know what? The federal government's not in the way. There's 9,000 drilling permits that so people could drill right now. Someone had a retort to that, which is excellent. Let me move on to that actually right now. This man here, it's a laid off pipeline worker. I don't know who he is. He sounds like really, really prepared. It's not easy to do what he did on TV. Let's hear from him right now.
Crabtree laid off Keystone XL pipeline worker. Neil, you heard Jen Psaki there say that, restarting the Keystone XL pipeline would have no impact on gas prices. It wouldn't decrease gas prices. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, good morning, and thank you for having me. And that's one thing I definitely wanted to hit on. Your own colleague, Peter Ducey's got a tough job getting straight answers out of the White House, and she wants to talk about the facts. Well, I'm about to give her the facts. I don't care if we got 9,000 leases available. I don't care if we got 90,000 available. No company is going to develop a new lease because they won't let us build the pipelines to move it once we do find it. As long as
So you see the games that she was playing? This is evil stuff. She can't answer the question without being honest. And I know that some of that stuff is just fed to her because you can see her trying to gracefully go to her notes, and she's got to cover an array of topics. I'm not against her having notes, but you can see she says, "Whoa, there's 9,000 available." And it caught my attention too. I was like, I didn't know that. So then luckily, I was able to hear this clip, and he's like, it doesn't matter if there's 100,000 available. If we build on it, we can't do the pipes for it. So that makes no sense.
Well, I'm about to give her the facts. I don't care if we got 9,000 leases available. I don't care if we got 90,000 available. No company is going to develop a new lease because they won't let us build the pipelines to move it once we do find it. You know, as long as Biden's using this policy of any way but an American way, we're in for some deep trouble. You know, I couldn't believe when I heard that maybe we're going to Iran for oil. I thought it was fake news. I had to look this up. I mean, what's next? Are we going to shake down North Korea for a few barrels and help, build their nuclear program? Because that's what's going to happen if we go to Iran for oil.
Yeah, and Neil, gas prices now $4.17 a gallon. That's a record high. How quickly would gas prices go down if President Biden said, okay, all in on energy independence, let's fire up the Keystone Pipeline, let's start drilling again?
I think you would see an immediate impact. Like I've said before, and your own Neil Cavuto points this out all the time, that the oil trades on futures, and if they see that we're taking a step in the right direction, it will have an immediate impact. And, the thing about the Keystone is the workforce is ready to go. We could build this thing. If you hear a lot about it, it'll take years. No, we could have this thing up and going in about 8 months. The people that build these pipelines, they are that good. I work with them every day. So it would have an immediate effect.
Okay.
Excellent segment there. That doing what he did there, so concise and answering the question in such a clear way for a layman like myself to understand what he's saying. Excellent spot there. Really hard to do. Looking at this, I want to end on a good note. I want to end with Tulsi. She mentioned the price of gas is going through the roof. Food prices, basically everything's tied to the price of gas. So good luck eating out and all that in the future. It's going to go even higher. And we're facing the very real possibility of war with Russia. Tucker Carlson talked about it. I've been hinting at it too. Like if two people have beef and you keep giving weapons to one of the people and money to one of the people, in our case, we were giving money to both of the people. That is so bizarre. They're both fighting. But now you're just giving money to one of the people and there's a whole gang of people trying to give them planes and all kinds of stuff. At some point, isn't the person that's fighting them going to turn to you and say, like, we just need to fight? Like, why are we doing this? Like, we're playing this game to make it, we're not in a war. We're just giving them the weapons to do it. I mean, we're really close to just saying, like, forget it. Hands off, hands free. Let's just go throwing, which puts everybody in danger. That's why she mentioned a nuclear holocaust. And for what? I still haven't heard an answer to that question. I just like listening to Tulsi. I know she's bad on 2A. We're not going to agree with everybody on everything. Like that, just because she's bad on 2A and some people are so much into some of these other single voter issues, man, that's not, I'm fine with that balance. She's bad on 2A, but she's not some lunatic. She's not Beto O'Rourke. Well, some people could argue that, but I don't think she is. I'm going to leave you out with her. Let me know what you think.
You're from Hawaii.
No.
Which is a state, but it's very far away, farther than people realize. Did you know that Washington was like this?
No.
Yeah.
No. I came in both to Congress as well as even coming into my campaign for president with the hope of the opportunity of being able to speak to the American people, to be able to present these issues that drove me to run for president, that drove me to run for Congress, of having served on 2 deployments to the Middle East, of understanding in the most deep and visceral way the cost of war and the responsibility, the most important responsibility that any president has is to serve as commander-in-chief and make these decisions that directly impact my brothers and sisters in uniform. I served in a medical unit during my first deployment where every single day I was confronted with that human cost of war. I had to go through a list every day of every casualty and injury of any American in operating in Iraq during that time. And knowing that behind every one of those names was one of my brothers and sisters in uniform with family members and loved ones at home. Some who would never, ever be able to say their last and final goodbye. They are the ones who I have kept with me since I came home and throughout all of my efforts to say we need to have leaders who are making responsible decisions about our foreign policy, about where and when our troops are sent into combat, about understanding the need to say, hey, before we do anything, we need to understand, we need a clear objective. We need to know what we are trying to accomplish and why. And does it serve the best interests of the American people, our country?
What is our objective?
And our national security. Know that we can actually accomplish this objective. So often we've seen failures, costly failures, both to the American people and in other countries, with one regime change war after the next, where our leaders fail to ask and answer these very basic questions that I can tell you a young lieutenant in the military knows. You don't launch an operation until you know what is your objective, build your strategy, a winnable strategy to accomplish that objective, and understand, does it serve our best interests of the uniform that we wear and the flag that we wear on our shoulder?
These are baseline considerations.
Basic.